Alright, so this is Level Engine here, and I'm going to explain exactly what goes into a bunch of these Zelda 2 randomizer runs. This is going to be sort of a how-to approach to running Zelda 2 randomizer. I'm going to try and do my best to just sort of make a tutorial-like video. So I figured the best thing I could do is similar to what RoseCitySaint did for his Zelda 2 randomizer tutorials. So instead of running the seed and then just slowly walking through and explaining things as they're happening, I had actually ran this seed earlier today. Decided to make the tutorial video now before, the details are not fresh in my mind as to exactly what transpired in the seed. So this is a Zelda 2 randomizer seed. It is, in other words, completely random. I have never seen it before. And first things first, before I actually go into... Okay, so first things first, before I actually start playing the seed itself, I'm going to have the Zelda 2 randomizer actually on screen, so I can walk through the flag set. In other words, this is the set of parameters that will determine exactly what the rule settings are for the Zelda randomizer. So these will be essentially the changes that will be made to Zelda 2. Selected options can be copy-pasted. The seed number was 101. So when it comes to this set of flags, I'll just quickly go through Start Configuration. I'll go through all the tabs. So this is not checked, so you can just choose to start with any of these items, but I start with no items and no spells. This is typical for standard type Zelda 2 randomization. Same goes for starting with 4 heart containers and maxing out at 8. And starting with no sword techniques, you have to get down stab from Mito, up stab from Darunia. Start with 3 lives and not anywhere from 2 to 5. Starting levels are typically all 1s. You can change these, but these usually just stay at all 1s for most Zelda 2 randomizer races. Allow palaces to swap continents, so this is checked, so this means that normally palaces 1, 2, 3 can only be in the west and 4, 5, 6 could be in the east, but palaces can thus swap continents, so an east continent palace could be in the west and vice versa. Include Great Palace in Shuffle would also mean that GP will not necessarily be in Valley of Death. Shuffle encounters essentially means that you could just get a forest encounter on a grass tile, or get a swamp encounter, so on and so forth. Allow unsafe path encounters is checked, so even on a road tile that's normally safe if you take an encounter there, you could get a dangerous encounter. Encounter rates reduced. Hidden Palace and Hidden Kasuto, so this Hidden Palace refers to what would normally be Palace 6 on the Three-Eyed Rock in the original game. It's set to random, so there's a 50-50 chance that the seed I'm about to show you will have a Three-Eyed Rock in it. And Hidden Kasuto is one of the towns you can go to. So there's also a 50-50 chance that town will be hidden under a forest tile, which you'll need a hammer to actually break to access the town. If this is checked, then it just changes what goes under Three-Eyed Rock and what goes under the hammer tile that would normally always have New Kasuto in it. This is not checked, so by this logic, there's a 50-50 chance that you will in fact need the flute because we're doing 6 palaces before Great Palace. Hiding less important locations is checked. So less important locations such as tiles that have only minor items, I typically just distinguish between the items as major and minor. Major items being things like the candle, the glove, the raft, so on and so forth, unique items that unlock certain parts of the seed. And then minor items such as point bags that give you more experience, 1-ups, red jars to refill your magic bar, and don't do much else. So these are just hidden in with the surrounding terrain. Restrict Connection Cave Shuffle. This is checked, so if a cave is pointing upwards, expect it to lead to a cave on the other side, upwards. So if you see a cave pointing upwards, and then, further up the map you see a cave pointing downwards, you could probably assume those caves are connected. So it makes traveling through caves easier, particularly in Death Mountain where there's a lot of them. Allow connection caves to be boulder blocked. Yes. All water is walkable with boots. This only does include water that's actually inbounds. You can't walk off the map. But you can walk on any other water tile if you get boots. Bagu's Woods exists. So you'll see some random trap tiles, and Bagu's house is hidden in there somewhere. And on some seeds you may need to actually find Bagu to go through Tanasaria. Continent connections, anything goes. As of version 4, you can have other options besides normal continent connections, which would be west is always connected to east via raft. 2 caves, each like link Death Mountain and West Continent, and east has a bridge to Maze Island, but anything goes. So we may not need the raft. West Hyrule is randomized, Death Mountain randomized biome. East Hyrule randomized biome, and Maze Island is vanilla-like. We do 6 palaces. Palaces are reconstructed, so any rooms that appear in palaces can appear in any palace. So, for example, a Palace 5 room can show up in Palace 4, a Palace 1 room could show up in 6. And community rooms are also included, so rooms created by the Zelda 2 community, some of which I recognize from Winter Solstice, can appear in the room pool. So rooms that you pretty much might have never seen before if you've never played a Zelda 2 randomizer can show up in palaces now, making them far less predictable than they used to be if you just simply shuffle the rooms within each palace, which is what used to be the norm before version 4.0 of the randomizer. Yeah, so you can get basically glove blocked out of any palace. Yeah, because palaces do have rooms where you need to break blocks to pass through them. These can show up in any palace. Boss rooms exit the palace. So in other words, if this is selected, boss rooms no longer lead outside, there's more palace behind it. Potentially an item might be behind a boss. So might have to kill a boss to get the palace's item. This is standard fare to just make a smaller Great Palace. And you have to fight Thunderbird. And standard Zelda 2 randomizer tournament rules are defined as follows. So one of the rules is that you must kill Thunderbird. If you find a way to cheat past it and then kill Dark Link, you're disqualified, so you have to kill Thunderbird. And 6 palaces to complete. Also standard fare to restart at palaces on a game over. So I'll be taking advantage of that as opposed to the normal starting spot. This is self-explanatory. This also makes it so bosses don't necessarily drop keys, so unlock the doors behind them anymore. All experience needed for each level up is shuffled. Level cap. This is also something recently added into 4.0 randomizer. It's standard fare to just leave all of these level caps at 8, but you can just stop a player from leveling up at lower levels. But these are all going to stay as 8 because that's standard fare. To start at 1 and max at 8 for each stat. So the life spell could either be like nerfed or buffed. Could do like more healing or less healing with this set on. Shuffle spell locations. So like the different towns have different spells. So Rudo won't have necessarily jump, Roru won't have shield, so on and so forth. This is checked, so this means that you will not need like certain amounts of magic containers to get the spells in the eastern towns. Because in normal Zelda 2, you need 5 magic containers to take Fire out of Nabooru, 6 to take Reflect out of Darunia, 7 to take Spell out of New Kasuto, and all 8 to take Thunder out of Old Kasuto. This just makes it so you can just get the spell as soon as you find the town. Like, excluding any other requirements. This is selected, so when you can just turn enemies into normally blobs with a spell. This will make it so they change to something else, potentially. Fire spell is removed and it's replaced with a dash spell that just makes Link move faster. Shuffle overworld enemies. Shuffle palace enemies. Shuffle dripper enemy. Yes. Mix large and small enemies basically means that small enemies can spawn where large enemies do, and vice versa. Enemies may have more or less health. Shuffle which enemies steal experience and amount of XP stolen, and which enemies in the east will require Fire Thunder to kill and can't be hurt with the sword. Only applying to like an enemy in the east. So I think normally it's like the Tektites and the Basilisks that have the sword immunity. So the sword immunity never gets put onto an enemy in the West Continent or anything like that. Reserved to stuff that's like specifically in the east. Think like Lizalfos. Yeah, the Tektites I mentioned earlier, the Scorpions. Those eyeballs that move slow and hit hard. Also, what I think look like mosquitoes, but they probably aren't called mosquitoes. Shuffle palace items. Items found in palaces shuffled. Yes. Items found in the overworld shuffled. Yes. Allow palace items to be found in the overworld and vice versa. Yes. We'll include the 3 P-bag caves as item locations, so those could have major items in them, so something major you need to actually beat the seed could be in a simple P-bag cave that would otherwise just have something unimportant. Shuffles minor items, such as point bags, jars, and 1-ups that don't necessarily unlock anything, but they're just goodies you can find. When selected, you will need either 5, 6, or 7 match containers to go get the item from the lady in Nukusudo. If this is not selected, you'll always need 7, like in the original game, to get her item. If this were to be selected, you wouldn't need the Trophy Medicine and Kid to get the spells in Ruto, Mido, and Drunia, respectively. But we do need those items if we want those spells. P-bag amount values are not shuffled. The drops are manually selected, and from the looks of it, you can't get more than 200 experience points off single point bag drop from any enemy. Also, enemies will never drop 1-ups or keys with this flag set either. So it removes some options that you could otherwise have, just killing enemies for keys, to just use those to get through palaces. So if this is checked, townspeople that are standing still may give you hints as to where items are located. People who require spell items will tell you sort of where the item can be found if this is checked. I mean, I do want to show off sort of what these look like. Signs in towns will just tell you what spells found in the town as opposed to the name of the town. This is just random text from the community if you select it. And this is just miscellaneous options. For the most part, a lot of this doesn't actually affect the flag set. So this is just a quick overview as to exactly what sort of Zelda 2 randomizer seed this is going to be. So it's pretty standard fare to just start with no items whatsoever. Have all 6 gems you need to place in 6 different palaces. And start with 4 heart containers and max out at 8. This is just all the standard fare. And normally I don't actually use a tracker myself. I have a sheet of paper that just has the major item locations listed on it. And maybe some other hints, but I have a tracker that I'm going to use just so it'll actually be easier for people watching this to follow through. And I start with no items. I have the 6 gems here I start with. And of course 2 lives, and you start with no keys also. So this is pretty much the first thing I see upon getting out of the starting point. So I decide to go to Saria first. And I notice that I'm on the wrong side of the town that has the spell. Probably one of the less important spells for the most part in the Zelda 2 randomizer setting. I also find a random tile that has an unimportant red jar on it that I can't even make any use of since I start with no spells anyways. Nothing to use magic on. So I'm also just checking caves. I do see what looks like one end of quote-unquote jump cave, because this is the cave in Zelda 2 you need to actually traverse through with the jump spell to get from Ruto to Midoro Swamp. You're going like left to right, so you need jump for that. This is 3 screens long, so I typically just opt to not go through jump cave unless I feel like I really have to. Yeah, there's 3 screens of also pitch black cave, so I just sort of opt out of going in there. I just confirmed my suspicions as to whether or not that is the other end of Jump Cave, and it is. This is the left half of Jump Cave. I know where this is going to lead, if I could go through, I know where it would lead to. Would lead to the other end of the cave I've already seen. I find another pass-through cave, but I decided to just check the part of the West Continent I'm in already first. And I find some towns. This is Mito with the shield spell, but you need the medicine to get that. This is Tanarudo Lifetown. So this has, like, yellowish-brown grass. That's how you know you're in Tanarudo. Mito had the white ground. That's how you tell that one apart from the others. And Roru looks like this. So it has green grass. Whereas the Saria town, that had, like, also green ground, but that was also tinted blue. This is more of a yellowish tint on the green. And I'm also talking to random people for hints, assuming they have any. And first things first, you talk to this lady and you can just go get the spell from this town straight away. Which is dash, by the way. Once I can start casting that, Link can run like twice as fast, give or take. Yeah, so no hints out of Roru, it looks like, so far. Yeah, when I do see myself pausing again, I will probably want to explain just exactly how spells work and how much, like, the costs actually, how you actually read the costs and everything. So Dash is the first spell I have. It costs 69 magic points. Every full square of magic you have, that counts for 16 points of magic, so you start with 64 magic points. I don't have 69, so I can't cast Dash straight away. And also, this right here is what you would call Trophy Cave. Okay, I'm probably going to also want to just mark things. So, let's just say that this first slot is probably Tanarudo. It's not Fairy. That's Fire. Yeah, Roru. That's, I guess, Spell. That would probably be Life. Okay, I think I maybe just have to have the icon for Fire here. Because Dash replaced Fire. And Mito had Shield. That's Life, right? And Rudo had the Life spell. So yeah, we'll say this. Or is that Fire? And yeah, this is, by the way, Trophy Cave. So I'll probably want to just mark whatever item was in here. And yeah, no other cave in the game has a screen that looks like that the moment you enter it. And this is actually an insanely good find, by the way. Yeah, that's Trophy Cave right there. So this is a crazy good find. This is actually the magic key. Within the first 3 minutes of the seed, I get a magic key. So this means I can open any locked door in any palace. That's pretty much infinite keys right there. So for the rest of the seed, I do not have to worry about running short on keys. Which is pretty huge. To not have to think about that for basically the whole game. So I took a cave in the west, and it took me to what looks like a different continent in the game. So I poke around a bit to confirm I'm in Death Mountain. And I see a few caves that look like they only show up in there. Yeah, these are all caves unique to Death Mountain. Those two. I decide to not stay there because I see a bridge that will take me to another different continent that's not Death Mountain. This could take me either to Maze Island, the east, or back to the west. Not Death Mountain because I'm literally already there. And this is Maze Island I got taken to. which I decided to actually explore despite my low stats. Not the best idea necessarily if you're not that comfortable with combat. Because enemies on Maze Island are basically the East Hyrule enemies, so they're going to be pretty strong, especially if you're going here with all 1 stats. But I decided to give it a go anyways. So I'm poking around for 2 major item hotspots on Maze Island right about now. Yeah, up to 2 major items could be hidden on Maze Island, and 2 random tiles you just fall into. So I'm poking around for those right now. Okay, is this spell? What's the icon for spell? Probably the blob. Fairy. I'm guessing that's fire. I'm guessing that's the icon for jump, this Megmat here. That jumps high. That's reflect. Spell, probably because it turns the enemies to blobs. Let's mark that too before I forget. I mean, I decided to have the tracker and the stream layout for a reason. Well, not stream, but still. Decided to have that on screen so people could follow. Just so following through is a bit easier. So, I found one of the Maze Island items already. That item is the kid. That's probably the cave with the match container in it on Maze Island. Yeah, the cave with the kid in it's bigger. So let me just mark this as kid. Thank you. Let's mark that as kid. And I also just noticed, top right corner of Maze Island, this is a raft tile. Top right corner of Maze Island. If you have a raft, you can go there, and that will take you to a continent in the game that's not Maze Island, because you're already on Maze Island in this case. Don't know where it's going to take me yet. Yeah, a tile like that on the edge of Maze Island is usually just a raft tile. Not to be confused with the bridge tiles that look identical, but aren't raft spots. So unsurprisingly, I'm going to take a death to one of these enemies. So yes, I still decide to keep on poking around this island. But I decided to check out the palace first, just to see which one it's going to be. So, I know from this first screen it's either one of 2 palaces, it's 3 or it's 6. I don't know which is which, because there is this certain pillar top. So, this pillar here, I guess look at the pillar. Avert your eyes to the pillar in the palace, to the right of this Iron Knuckle statue. Look up, and then look at the top of the pillar, which has a shape that can tell you that you're looking at one of 2 different palaces. The shape on this pillar top, that's unique to Palaces 3 and 6. But with Palaces 3 and 6, you can tell them apart from this first screen. But I can tell these apart from 1, 2, 4, 5, and of course the final one. So I know 3 or 6 is on Maze Island. Yeah, assuming you haven't actually played through this scene yet, you would know that you're looking at 3 or 6, but you wouldn't know for sure which is which unless you decide to dive in and see some rooms. Maybe find some windows unique to one of the palaces. Or find the boss. If rooms are only just shuffled within their respective palaces, you could just go in and look for a room that's unique to either Palace 3 or 6 to tell them apart, but with Reconstructive Palaces, that doesn't apply. You would have to find a room with windows in it to tell you which palace you're in. Windows unique to either 3 or 6, or find the boss to actually know. So what I'm also electing to do here is just try and gather experience off the statue that could either be a red jar or a red iron knuckle. If you know what you're doing, it's fairly simple to kill this for experience that I want to use up before I actually risk losing all my lives. So what I do after leveling up Magic to 3 is I basically just use the up and A trick, which on a regular console, you need to have a second controller for this, pressing up and A on the second controller, though I've configured my emulator to just allow me to do up and A on my keyboard or some combination of keystrokes to resemble it. So it just forces a game over instantly by pressing that button combination. And I restart at this palace because I'm in this palace on the game over. So it gives me my 3 lives back. So I can just explore the island with a lower risk of getting a game over and getting kicked back to start. Yeah, this is allowed for randomizer, so I'm definitely using it. Plus A. So I found another cave. I don't recognize any of this. Well, I didn't recognize any of this when I first got here. So I look around and find a town. And also an encounter. The ground in this forest encounter is about halfway up the screen, so just from this, I know I'm in the east. And not to mention I found Town of Darunia, which uniquely has a purple sky the other towns don't have. And Darunia's got fairy. And that's actually a hint. So this is a clue right here. Alright, so I gotta just also figure out how to configure this here. His Island, Palace 2. Okay, so Palace 2 has the heart container. Okay, that just tells you like where Palace 2 is. We don't know yet. So I'm just going to put that down right now. Just get that noted that a heart container's in Palace 2. Talking to this lady to have my magic refilled. Yeah, so I gotta just like make note that Darunia's got fairy. So yeah, not even 10 minutes into the seed, and I've already just made notes as to where like 5 of the 8 spells are. And fairy is actually, if you ask me, probably one of the best spells in the whole game. There are so many things you can do with the fairy spell. Of course, it's not just limited to flying around with the fairy spell. Basically just bypassing platforming. And being immune to knockback. That's another huge plus. But there are several more things you can do as a fairy. Including just slipping past locked doors in palaces if you don't have keys for them. But this may require a lot of magic. More obvious use for fairy would be to just fly past enemies you otherwise might not be inclined to fight. By the way, I'm in another item cave. So yeah, this is one of the P-Bag caves. P-Bag cave. Yeah, there's 2 of them. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got, like, the first P-Bag cave in the east you can encounter, which is nicknamed Sunken Item Cave. Has the candle in it. May not necessarily pick it up, I'm gonna mark it as such. I mean, I know what item is in there, and I may not need the candle. In fact, I misplayed pretty badly. I tried to just dash past that, like, enemy in the dark. I tried dashing past it. When I should have just used fairy, that would have been making it much easier to just dodge. So the game over that I just incur from that misplay sends me back to start, which is in the west. So I decide at this point to make my next move to grab Downstab in the town of Mito. I grab one of my sword techniques. And it's probably one of the most useful unlocks in a Zelda 2 randomizer you can get, quite frankly. So in other words, the town with the white ground. This is Mito. So I have the fairy spell. You could also get downstab with the jump spell. It was probably intended for you to only use the jump spell, but you can do it with fairy too. The guy in this house has no hint though, I do check. So you can go and get the downstab with the fairy spell. But one thing you need to remember when you actually cast fairy this way, you need to be on the ground to enter a door. So all you need to remember to do is just cast fairy while standing on the ground. If you cast it in midair, you're not going to be able to go in the door. So while standing still on the ground, cast fairy. Then fly up to the door, fly in front of it, then press up to enter. Okay, I didn't need to rewind that far back. So I'm standing on the ground casting fairy. So the game will still assume I'm standing on the ground. This will allow me to logically enter doors. So just sort of hug the top of that roof there. Get in front of the door, press up, and then it lets you in. Assuming you cast it while standing on the ground. If you're in midair and cast it, it won't let you through. So I can now attack enemies with a downward thrust. It both makes combat easier against, like, plenty of enemies. And against other enemies, it can also make running away from them easier. Rather than having to just, like, jump on them and get hit, possibly backwards, just making you, like, lose, like, momentum to try and get away from the enemies. You can instead just bounce on their heads. Even if you don't plan to kill them, you can just bounce on their heads and sustain no damage or knockback, making running away easier. So I decided to now go through this cave to find myself in a caldera. So this is basically just a giant lake on top of a mountain. Which, if it's in the West Continent, it's guaranteed to have a palace in there. So I'm looking at another palace entrance. So this is 4 right here. Palace 1 and 4, again, avert your eyes to the pillar, look upwards, and you'll see the top of the pillar looks like what I would call a smiley face. Palaces 1 and 4, alongside the Great Palace, have this smiley face pillar top. 1 does not have this fire moa outside the palace, whereas 4 does. So I'm going to mark this as such. 4 in the west on the caldera. Which I do not go inside. Then I find another cave that's logically connected to the top half of the West Continent. And I see a grass tile up there as well, that'll have something on it. Unsurprisingly, I sustained another death in the dark. And yes, I could have had that candle if I wasn't such an idiot. What, I've been doing this for like almost 3 years now? And I make that mistake. So I found the grass tile. The grass tile has a magic container on it, so I'm going to mark that as such right now. I see another palace on the top half of West Hyrule. I check it to find this palace here. So, more pillar tops, unique to palaces 2 and 5 now. So again, look at the pillar to the right of the Iron Knuckle statue. That's holding up the palace ceiling, holding up the entryway. Look up to the pillar that looks like it has 3 eyes and a frowny mouth or something. I don't know, it looks like a three-eyed pillar to me, but just make of it what you will. All I know is I distinguish Palaces 2 and 5 with this specific look of this pillar. And then from the first screen, if you see this three-eyed pillar, as I call it, what you want to do also is just hit the Iron Knuckle. With Palaces like this, there's no risk that an Iron Knuckle will just jump out to kill you. One of two things will happen. There will be a red jar, which I got in this case, or there will be no red jar. If there's a red jar in this case, you got Palace 2. If there's no red jar, you got Palace 5. So Helmet Head is in here somewhere. And I decide to continue looking around the map first. And I find P-Bag Cave. Because in the original Zelda 2, there is a point bag in here. Which could have something major in it with my flag set I've picked. Yeah, it was Palace 2 in the west. Gonna mark it as such. Yeah, I'm killing enemies, hoping I just get enough experience to take attack 3. Yeah, I'm also trying to just prioritize attack and magic levels. Well, mainly trying to prioritize attack levels over life levels and whatnot. Because being able to just kill stuff faster will, for the most part, just make getting through the seed easier. So I want to typically prioritize attack levels, but you can just level up your character however you see fit. And this is another palace. Also, if you want to rewind to the Maze Island Palace I found, you'll notice it has the exact same pillar top. Of course, this is a different colored palace, but this pillar top's the same as the one on the Maze Island Palace. So if this is Palace 3, then the palace on Maze Island is 6, and vice versa. But again, from the first screen, I can't distinguish. I also just found Medicine Cave, but what I decided to do is try and just finish off my level to get to level attack 3. So I decided to go into the palace and look for, hopefully, an enemy that's easy to kill to give me enough experience to just get 510. And I find this armored Stalfos that jumps around because he's blue. And since I incurred a game over, I lose the 400 experience I had already. So I just cut my losses and go to Medicine Cave. Don't think I marked what was in P-Bag Cave yet. I'm gonna go back and just do that. Yeah, let's mark this before I forget. Skipped a bit too far. Okay. Skipped a bit of footage, but I just wanted to at least show you what item was in there, so... Medicine Cave had the medicine in it, so let's mark it as such. Which, given the logic, if you know that you need to give the lady in Mido the medicine for her daughter, Mido had the shield spell in it. So, going with this logic, the medicine would give you the shield spell if you just go take it back to the town you need to take it to. And then I actually do decide to go and enter this palace. Unsure if it's 3 or 6, I go in with 2 3/3 stats and a down stab and minimal spells. Plus a magic key, so locked doors are not an issue. I'm also hoping I'll find plenty of enemies that drop good amounts of experience while perusing this palace. And killing the boss, especially if it's like Barba in Palace 6, will drop a good chunk of experience to help me level up to get better stats. So that's what I'm going for, just good experience and also to just place a gem. So when it comes to these palaces, you'll definitely want to have a good memory as to exactly how all the rooms are laid out. Especially in the cases where you can get repeating rooms. You could get the same room in the same palace twice, and it could just make actually memorizing the palace a little more confusing. And with Reconstructive Palaces, there's another, like, major thing you need to take note of. When it came to loops in palaces, rooms that just basically have cycles, so in other words, you can just go through the same set of rooms infinitely. So let's just say that room A would be over here, then room B, then room C, then room D. You could go from room A links to room B, then room B could be linked to C, then C could be linked to D, and D could be linked back to A, thus allowing you to go in a cyclical pattern through those 4 rooms. So those are called loops commonly by the Z2R community. I also refer to them as cycles. In normal Zelda 2, and also old Zelda 2 Randomizer before 4.0, only palaces 4, 6, and the final palace could have cycles in them. But with new palace logic, any palace could have loops, so you have to pay attention to that. It would help to pay attention to that. Notice when you get caught in a loop so you don't get, like, lost or just, like, turned around forever. So I hit a dead end, so I decided to just up an A to just get back to the start of the palace to take a different set of branching paths. So it would also really help to just think of the palaces as graphs. So in other words, just nodes and edges. So we have nodes on a graph that are connected by edges, and for the sake of palaces, these edges are all undirected. Like, these are mostly undirected edges, except for the case scenarios where you just jump down a hole, because you can't go jump up a hole you fell down. In a majority of cases, the edges will be undirected, so you can go traverse them both ways. So just picture this as one node of the palace, and the rooms to the right would just each also be nodes on a graph, connected by edges to one another. So this is a room beneath the first room, and from what I'm seeing, you can go left or you can go right. The boss could be either way. Item could be either way. You have no idea, assuming you're just not, like, digging into the seed ahead of time, which is standard fare to just not do that. Assuming, like, normal randomizer circumstances, you don't know which way will be which just yet. So I gotta just pick where I want to go, of course. And then just mentally put together in my head exactly which rooms lead where in the palace. So this is indeed another fork in the road right here. As you can see, you're going to be able to go either up or further to the right. And I know for a fact this is a room from Palace 4 that's a dead end that has either a key or a point bag at the end, which either way I don't really need. So I just consider that to be like a node of sorts that just stops off as a dead end. So I just consider that to be like a node with no additional children in the graph. So basically a leaf node, in other words, you can see that as, if you want to use graph theory to also just, like, represent these palaces. I mean, graph theory, not gonna lie, does help you understand palaces and how they're constructed a bit better. I mean, you don't need to know this stuff. This is, like, computer science stuff you don't need to know, but I guess it does help. And earlier I saw a room that had windows that told me that I was in fact in Palace 6. Okay, I went too far back. Okay, I want to rewind back to this screen. So, these are windows unique to Palace 6. The barred windows. Those only show up in Palace 6, so I'm in the West Continent. So Palace 6 is in the west, so Palace 3 thus has to be in Maze Island. I forgot to mention that. Want to bring that up too. So 3 is on Maze Island now. 6 is in the west. That's another fork in the road. You can go up or left. I decided to try and take a left turn here. Alright, just wait for me to respawn. Honestly, I'm probably going to want to put additional resources. I'm not going to put them on screen directly in the video, though. They'll probably just be like some files on my Google Drive I'll just share, most likely. So I'm turning back because, in case you actually missed it, what I ended up eventually noticing from what I've seen here is that I have entered what looks like a loop. So I'm trying to kill this red iron knuckle. So the left turn on this screen, if you take the left turn on this screen, you end up in the room that I was actually in just earlier. And going down that elevator takes me back to this screen, so I did in fact enter a loop. So the 2 rooms up this elevator here, they just loop around themselves infinitely, so that is clearly not the way to go. So if I were to represent Palace 6 as a graph, with graph theory, I would definitely put that down as a cycle in the graph. Yeah, so you can just represent that as a loop. So I'm going to just double back and check elsewhere in the palace I haven't been yet. I mean, there's also nothing stopping you from just actually making notes of what the palaces look like, just actually mapping it out yourself as you play through the seed, but, I mean, this is timed in real time, so that would take time to actually draw everything down on a piece of paper. And not to mention, you will probably only likely see this specific configuration for this palace once. You'll get completely different palaces and other seeds. And I remember to my right was a dead end, so I go in this direction. And I find a red iron knuckle with a Doom Knocker backing him up, so I elect to get the Iron Knuckle by himself to kill him easier, then worry about the Doom Knocker. I find what looks like another fork in the road, potentially. I look in this direction first, or try to anyways. I can't believe I had this much trouble with that combat there. I mean, I'm trying to keep my lives, of course. I mean, I'm playing this as I know that I have to fight Barba eventually. Like, I already know for a fact Barba has to be fought to place a gem in this palace, as I've seen the Palace 6 windows already. And I found another room that I just immediately recognize as something out of Helmet's Head Palace that was a dead end. So I turned back there. So I check up the elevator first, and then I find this screen. So I found Barba, the Palace 6 boss. It's actually fairly easy to dodge the attacks on this thing. I mean, it waits a good while before actually shooting fire at you. And there's always the exact same delay on when Barba's gonna shoot the fire at you, which is so very easy to just learn the timing to jump over this fire. But I have attack 3, so it's gonna take quite a few hits to actually bring the boss down. But the attack I find is very easy to dodge. Even though it's probably gonna hit really hard because my life level is low for this kind of boss fight. Yeah, you would be intended to fight this with much better stats, because this is like one of the final bosses in the game you fight right here. I'm fighting it early. Like, it's after this, you go to Great Palace. Not too long after this, you go to the final palace in a normal game of Zelda 2. So just rinse and repeat. Wait for Barba to spawn somewhere, get some hits on Barba. Also just jump over the attacks. And don't fall in the lava pits either, because those are also just... those are guaranteed instant death if you fall in one. So rinse and repeat till the boss dies. Yeah, maybe you probably won't want to do Palace 6 as your first palace if you're not that experienced with combat. If you're not that comfortable with fighting Barba on low stats, maybe you don't want to come here with low stats. Maybe you don't want this to be your first gem placement. So I need 770 experience to take my next level up, and I have 709. So what I decided to do is just skip the gem placement for now, because I know the room behind it will lead to more palace. So I'll kill some enemies there for more experience. Trying to get a little bit more control over which level up I take next. So I opt out of Life 4. Life 5. And I opt out of Magic 4. So placing a gem will just give me enough experience to get to 1070, because that's how this game works. When a gem gets placed, you automatically level up to however much you need for your next level, in whatever stat you're trying to level next, that being, in my case, attack 4. And then I stay in the palace to look for its item, thinking it could be something important. Come to think of it, must have spent a lot of time in here. I realize I'm looking at a dead end, so I decide there's maybe one more place left in the palace to actually check for this item. And I feel like maybe it's not that deep in the palace, so it would be best to up A. My hunch was telling me just go down, then left. I do not recall having gone this direction before. So yes, I decided to just pursue this direction. Looking for the item to see if it's anything I'm gonna need outright. This is an item room screen. If you see that screen, you know you've entered an item room. And this leads me to pick up a hammer from Palace 6. So Barba had the hammer. So let me mark it as such. I then decide to go to Palace 2 and just place a gem in it. I don't actually remember if I remembered that I got the heart container hit for this place. So I run into this screen with blocks that I cannot break. You need the glove. You need the handy glove to break those blocks. I do not have it yet, so I am simply not able to access everything past this point in the palace, so I have to go left. I can only go to my left in Palace 2. You do not need to break these blocks. And I guess while I'm at it, I'll just mention that the glove is quite possibly the most important item that you need to find, since there are quite a few rooms in various palaces that you simply cannot get through without a glove, and there are a lot of different rooms in the final palace that you will always need to go and find the final bosses in that have blocks you need the glove to actually break. There are so many rooms in the final palace that you need the glove to actually traverse, so it's safe to just assume you're going to require it. Especially in a case scenario like this, where you need to do all 6 palaces, plus Thunderbird is also required, so that just really decreases the odds of you getting a short Great Palace with very few rooms in it. Which really would give you better odds of not needing a glove in Great Palace. I find this dead-end room again, so I just get out of Palace 2. Honestly, my mind at this point is just fixated on getting that glove as soon as possible, so I don't have to worry about it for when Great Palace comes along. But one thing I know for certain is that going into Palace 2, you have the option to go left or right. Going right, you run into a wall that you can't pass without the glove. Running left eventually leads to Helmet Head and then a dead end with no other options as to where to actually go. So, just by simple logic, you can't get the glove in Palace 2 because the item's glove blocked. It would make absolutely no sense for that to be the glove. I forgot the heart container hint, but just by simple logic, I knew for a fact glove could never be in P2. And that's often the one item I'm just fixated on most getting, since it's almost a guarantee you need it for all the rooms in Great Palace that are glove blocks. And by the way, I also found Heart Container Cave. So another major item could be in here. Okay, I can leave this playing while I mark the raft. Okay, why is that Dig Shake's head? The raft. I don't know why this tracker has Dig Shake's head. I do guess that I just found Match Container Cave. The cave doesn't even look like it could point anywhere else on the map. Looks like it points off the map, and yes, this is in fact Match Container Cave. With a heart container in it. Gonna mark it as such. And then first things first, I also want to talk about Heart Container Cave again. Also do want to just mention Heart Container Cave. I guess just a word of advice before I forget about it. Yeah, so when it comes to the various item caves that have major items in them potentially, the first screen of each of those caves is pretty much unique. So Medicine Cave, there's no first screen on any cave that looks like it. Same for Trophy, same for Match Container Cave, and same goes for P-Bag Cave. But Heart Container Cave, you could mix it up with the left end of Parappa Cave. But one thing to note for Heart Container Cave, that the first screen will have an enemy on it. You may have to look around a bit harder to just see like, any sign of movement if you're going in there in the dark, which is my case. So yeah, the first screen of an item cave, well, this item cave specifically, to tell it apart, this has an enemy on the first screen you enter, guarding the item in the cave, whereas Parapet Cave, first screen, you don't have an enemy right away in the cave, but here you do. I would also nickname this Enemy Cave, just to tell it apart from Parapet Cave, which is a pass-through. Just to help remember, like, if you see an enemy on this first screen with a cave that looks like that, you might have an important item in there. Might want to check it out. And again, no cave in the game looks like Match Container Cave either. Again, it's a completely unique cave and how it's designed. Not to mention, I step on this cemetery tile way more than I should. And that's a Lost Woods tile that is associated with Bagu's Woods. So I want to get out of that as soon as possible. There's nothing I need there. So I already have 2 gems placed out of my 6 that I started with. Both of these are in the west. I'm actually also stopping by Mito to take shield. So far, 2 gems have been placed, both in the west. Palaces 2, 4, and 6 have been found in the west, confirmed they were there. Palace 4 has Karok in it, a boss whom you can only kill with the Reflect spell that I don't currently have. So I do remember my next move after getting shield just being to go to a different continent in the game, because the west has not much else for me. I found all its major item hotspots, placed 2 gems in the palaces I was able to place gems in so far, not counting 4 because I can't kill Karok with no Reflect. Since shield cuts down the damage you take from anything that hits you by half when it's active, I decide to grab it. I do decide to grab that just to make things a bit safer. And another thing I did earlier actually was step into a cave when I felt like enemies were about to spawn pretty shortly, just to reset the timer for the enemy spawns. You could definitely opt to just hop between caves to just reset the time on enemy spawns if you wish. It's a perfectly valid strategy. So again, I just blow past Death Mountain. And of course I have a much easier time escaping the Maze Island enemies with a down stab in my possession. I can just bounce over the enemies I don't want to have to fight. And that blue lizard man, I decided to try and kill him because I think they normally drop, I don't know. I'm trying to remember how much experience they drop in normal Zelda 2. Might be 300, might be 200. They can drop up to 500 if you're lucky, which is pretty large experience drop, and well, you know, the blue lizard men on this specific seed do drop 500 experience per kill. So that could be a good way to level up if I want to take it. So just further insight, that could be a nice way to level up. And then I don't remember actually locating this Maze Island item. With another lizard man guarding whatever's in here. We may throw maces. Never mind. It wasn't a 500, it was a 50. So Maze Island's second item is a point bag. I don't even think that shows up here. that doesn't even appear to be one of the items here. So I'll just put Dig Shake's head, pretend that's a point bag. I guess maybe just do drugs or drink alcohol, but don't overindulge. Maybe just don't. If you take too many drugs or drink too much alcohol to a point where you think that Dig Shake head's a point bag, then maybe you're overdoing it, maybe you shouldn't. Okay, maybe just completely forget everything I said. Just pretend that's a point bag, that Dig Shake head. So I guess this is a blue lizard man because I saw a mace flying across the screen despite the fact of being pitch black in here. No other lizard man throws their maces unlike the blue one, which is the one that drops 500 experience, so I decide to kill him and then put all the experience into attack 5. Also, what are they claiming here again? Oh, I just went back for the candle in Sunken Cave. It's already marked. I'm not gonna mark it again, of course. Yeah, so for West Continent, there are 5 item caves. There's Trophy Cave, Medicine Cave, Magic Container Cave, Heart Container Cave, and Peabag Cave. Any of those could have a major item in them. Plus, there's a grass tile, so 5 caves plus grass tile, just remember that. East Continent has 2 item caves. Sunken Item Cave and another one that's called by the community sometimes Risen Item Cave. A desert tile. A water tile you need the boots for. And speaking of which, that right there is the desert tile. That has this 2x2 block little sort of rocky outcrop on it. Yep, that's the desert tile, speaking of the devil. And again, I don't know how to just put a point bag in this spot here, so I'll just put Dig Shake's head again. I also know for a fact that this is a pass-through item cave. Pass-through cave, pardon me. So you go in that cave and you can just pop out on the other side somewhere else in the east. But I decided to just take this road downwards instead, and I find a Wilson encounter, as the community calls it sometimes. You have lizard men hiding behind the wall throwing rocks on your head, which I just simply try and dodge. I just go around that anyways. And then I find... Yeah, so I find if you would just look at the bottom left corner of the screen, it looks like some caverns. It looks like caverns going into this giant mountain, so that's Death Valley, which I do not go into yet. Instead, I'll have to look for towns, and I find New Kusuto. New Kusuto looks like this on the first screen. The sign said jump, so I'm gonna put jump. And I assume this Meg Mat is the icon for the jump spell, because, yeah, I remember this guy for jumping really high. I guess just pretend this is the jump icon, unless it actually is. I ought to take the jump spell. Not that inclined to take it most of the time anyways, if I already have Fairy, because jump lets you jump higher, Fairy lets you fly. There's not too many things you can do with jump you also cannot do without with Fairy also. I mean, I guess jump is cheaper for one. And also, there's a disadvantage to Fairy. With Fairy, you actually can't use your sword or anything. That's like the one disadvantage to that spell. So yeah, this is another pass-through cave that I also decided to not go through. That would take me somewhere else on the map. Actually, no, I changed my mind. I do go through here. I do take this pass-through to see where it leads. And then I find myself closer to the bottom of the East Continent by taking that. I also decide to investigate this forest, and I see nothing noteworthy up there whatsoever. I find a town down here, which is... This is Naburu, not to be confused with Rauru. These two towns look very similar, but what you gotta remember is that Naburu never leaves the East Continent, and Rauru never leaves the West. At least still with current randomizer logic. This town will always be in the East. And Naburu has Reflect. Gonna mark it as such. The final town is gonna have Thunder, by process of elimination. I'm gonna wait to find the final town to just mark the spell, because we already know process of elimination leaves only one choice. I mean, Thunder's not elsewhere. So I take Reflect because I know I absolutely need this spell just to kill Karok. And I'm doing a 6-gem seed, so I do have to defeat this boss to place one of my 6 gems. And another thing I'm just probably gonna want to like make note of. For each of the different towns, for Rauru, and I'm talking to this NPC here, there's this bat you can also talk to maybe get a hint, but you have to talk to him 4 times before he'll say anything, potentially. Might as well bring that up too. And that just mentions the cross in Death Mountain somewhere. The M cross. So also, since I haven't said it yet, Town of Rauru, as soon as you find the town, you can get the spell from it. Tanarudo, you would need the trophy to get the spell out of that. Saria, you need a mirror, which you can just find in a house that's in the town that the wizard is in that you get the spell from. Yeah, so one of the houses has a mirror under a table, and then you give it back to the lady and get the spell in Saria. Mido, you have to find the Water of Life / medicine for the old lady and her daughter. This you have to explore the world for, potentially. Naburu, you have to get the lady some water. The fountain is literally within walking distance of the lady's house. Darunia, you have to find the kidnapped child, which I've already found, by the way. Speaking of the trophy, it's in this cave. Nukasudo, as soon as you find it, you can get the spell. Olkasudo, same thing. Assuming magic container requirements are turned off. Alright, this is Risen Item Cave. And it had, yeah, the trophy in it. I was about to just blank out on what was in there. Okay, the trophy is in here. That's P-Back Cave number 2 with trophy. So this is Old Kasudo, pardon me, I've already found New Kasudo. This is Old Kasudo. And something I want to make perfectly clear here. This sign you can read, but there are enemies in this town, and if you don't have the cross, there are invisible ones that can do damage that's potentially lethal. And something you absolutely need to make sure you don't do, especially if you don't save like me. Something you actually have to maybe watch out for, which you can easily avoid by just not reading the sign. If you read this sign as you die, you actually soft-lock the game. Which is obviously really bad, especially if you don't save. I've actually had that happen to one of my opponents in the middle of a tournament race, which caused me to actually win the race by like not even 5 minutes. Yeah, so basically my adversary triggered that in the middle of their race and lost over it. Made it pretty apparent that they could have easily won otherwise. So that you gotta watch out for. And I also just spotted this water tile by its lonesome surrounded by all these forest tiles. There's an item on there, but I do not yet have the boots, which allow you to walk on water, so I can't pick up whatever's there. Alright, so I found another palace near a water tile. And I already just immediately recognize what looks like the three-eyed pillar. But I found Palace 2, so I already know I'm in Palace 5 because I've seen 2. Alright, so I decided to go inside 5 here. Wait, I think I already also found Great Palace as well. I also vaguely remember stepping outside Great Palace and not even mentioning it. The palace where the sky was all black and it actually had different music playing. Yeah, so if you find a palace with black sky and different music that's not this, then you know you found the entrance to the Great Palace. And if you have any gems on you still to place in other palaces, don't bother trying to go inside, you can't. Starting things was a really bad idea to just do this tutorial video at 1 in the morning. So again, I just have to have a good memory as to where I'm actually going in this palace. And if you've also been paying attention, I typically try to go to my right as often as possible. Because when it comes to logic for boss rooms, you can never actually find a boss room to your immediate left. So if you're going left to another room, then it's not possible that that room immediately to your left is a boss room. That never happens. Also, with old palace randomization logic, you'd only find the bosses going right, but with new randomization logic, you can find the bosses going up an elevator and down an elevator in addition to going to your right. Yeah, I think I just found Gooma over here, going down an elevator, to prove my point. Yeah, so here's the big fat guy with the flail. That's kind of tricky to dodge, and hits pretty hard. But I've fought this guy plenty of times, so I feel comfortable. Plus I got the shield spell, so I feel comfortable to take him down. Yeah, if you have low stats, not comfortable with combat, then I really advise not going to Palace 5 on low stats. Also, if you don't have too many spells to help you out in the fight, I'd advise not coming to P5 on low stats. I mean, you could do it if you really know what you're doing, but if you're not comfortable with Gooma, fighting him, dodging his attacks, getting damage on him quickly, if you're not comfortable with that, then I'd advise saving that for later on in the seed. So I looked at my stats and decided to just take, Magic 5. And this just puts me at 165 out of 1850 experience needed to get life 6, I'd assume. But again, how this works is as soon as you place the gem, you just automatically get all the experience you need to get your next level up, which I'm pretty sure is life 6. So I take life 6 from the gem placement and magic 5 from the Gooma experience when he died. And I level up twice in this palace. And I opt to stay in it looking for the item. And I'm using Dash Spell pretty liberally since the cost on it recently decreased by a lot, making it much easier to actually cast. So I'm highly unlikely now at this point to get enough experience to take another level up, so I'm now inclined to leave point bags behind in a situation like this. have already seen this room, so I'm under the impression I might have just entered a loop. I assume I might have entered a loop/cycle. So I stopped pursuing that direction in Palace 5. And then I just go different direction instead, looking for the item in here. So I assumed that, like, in the other path I'd taken a loop. I just found the room with curtains again, which means that was a boss room. That being Guma, Palace 5 already killed him. Yeah, so rooms with curtains, that's how you know you found a boss, by the way. But I'm looking for an item room in case it's the glove or something else major. Yeah, I'm still finding plenty of forks on the road, by the way. Yeah, so when it comes to digging up palaces for items, I don't know how to feel about that sometimes. I mean, you're at the palace. I mean, if you want to dig the palace out for an item, and you're, like, inside the palace, the best time to do it would be while you're inside the palace. It's more like a now or never sort of thing, in a way. You would either want to do it now or just, like, wouldn't even bother. Unless you arrive at the conclusion there's no other way to go. Because, compared to simple caves and simple tiles you can easily see on the overworld, when it comes to palaces, those do take significantly longer to actually just search, most likely. It does often take significantly longer to scour those out for, like, the one room that's got an item. And in case you're wondering, I did die on purpose, just to have more magic to cast dash liberally. So when it comes to finding items, you could get unlucky and stumble into several dead ends in a palace you, of course, won't know the layout of ahead of time. Whole point of this being randomized is you're not going to know the layout ahead of time, so you'll have to just shoot blindly and hope for the best. So I mistake this dead-end room for an item room, by the way. I get to the end and realize I made a mistake. So I found 2 more dead ends already. This is forcing me into more backtracking, just costing me time. Thus losing time over it. Hence why it's a tricky decision as to whether or not you want to just go and raid palaces for items sometimes. Because you may just go down a bunch of dead ends and really waste a lot of time. And again, you could find an item you won't even really need that badly. So this is an item room screen right here. And I actually mistakenly don't even pick up the heart container in Palace 5. I mean, if it was something major, I would have made sure that I grabbed it, such as the glove. I mean, heart container could still be pretty major, but I certainly placed that at a lower priority, especially since I'm fairly good at combat. Plus I got shield spell already, so I just placed the heart container at a lower priority. I already have shield to just reduce damage if need be. So yeah, I placed that at a much lower priority than the glove, which I just assume is basically mandatory. So I'm marking 5 as heart container, because that's what was in there. Mistakenly forgot to grab it. Don't care that much because I have shield. So I decided to actually try something called a fairy feat, which I failed both times. Actually, no, I do get it. And I guess this is worthy of an explanation. Yes, so this trick is called fairy feat because apparently the person who discovered it was actually playing Zelda 2 with their feet to discover this trick. So this is basically just a glitch in the game, a minor glitch that doesn't completely break the game, but one you can use to your advantage. So normally for a screen like this Wilson encounter, you're intended to run across it from right side of the screen to the left. So you'll be running from the right side to the left, moving left. But what I'm doing here as a fairy, much easier to do this as a fairy. So what I'm doing is just trying to inch my way as close as possible to the edge of the screen. So I'm trying to get the fairy off the screen, but not far enough off the screen that I just exit the right side. So if you just tap the direction you need to tap in gently enough, carefully enough, you can just make the fairy go off the screen, but still be on the screen. And then at this point, all you have to do is just press left and you exit the screen, because in this state, going either left or right gets you off the screen. And pressing left essentially tricks the game into thinking you're exiting the left side of the screen. But I found a dead end for my efforts. And I don't have fairy magic, so I just run across the screen left to right normally that I just skipped. So I gotta do it normally. Alright, thanks for nothing. Also, in case anyone was wondering, New Kusuto, I passed by the raft tile that's connected to Maze Island, so you don't really need the raft, it's just another way you can go if you have the raft. So I'm just looking around to see how I can get to Death Valley. In the east, I'm just gonna have Palace 1. I've located every other palace on the overworld so far. There's always 3 palaces in the west, by the way. Not counting the one you start in. We do not count the one you start at. That looks like the other palaces you gotta put gems in. So there will always be 3 palaces in West Hyrule. Always be 3 in East Hyrule. One of which is always going to be in a Death Valley, pretty much. Like what I'm entering right here. This is a Death Valley. And yep, I did that on purpose. So I'm going into Death Valley right now. Trying to fairy feat, and let me actually try and just make one more thing clear. So when it comes to the East Continent, well, depending on the flag set, could be a 3-eyed rock. So you'll pretty much just see like a rock formation where there's a rock up here, one on the left and one on the right. One rock left, one rock up, and one rock right. If this shows up in your East Continent, then there's something hidden under it. You have to stand in the middle of the 3 rocks. And then there you would have to play the flute. If you have it, you would play the flute, and then something would be revealed. With the flag set I have, if there were a 3-eyed rock, a palace would be revealed that I need to actually put a gem in. So one thing you'll probably want to just make note of, one palace is always going to be in Death Valley in the east. Then there could either be 1 palace in the east out in the open, or there could be 2. If there are 2 palaces out in the open in the East Continent, then that means 3-eyed rock may either not exist, or won't have a palace buried under it. Which is typically the kind of thing you want to see, because it's just one less thing you have to worry about getting. So again, I'm just performing fairy feats to skip through Death Valley. Just carefully inching myself off the screen, tricking the game into thinking I've actually crossed the entirety of those Death Valley tiles. If you need to go from left to right, just switch the directions I mentioned around previously. By the way, the trick won't work in caves, also is not going to work in palaces and whatnot. I'm also on my last life, so I decided to just take another approach to just skipping this Death Valley tile I'd otherwise have to walk across. So another trick is called an encounter skip. So you can opt to just wait, so you can take an encounter on the exact same tile that you would otherwise have to just traverse across from one side to the other. So if you take an encounter on a tile that makes you just traverse across it, the enemy encounter does take priority. You will still be on that tile, but the enemy encounter that's often easier to either escape or quicker will take priority. And you will still be on that tile you would otherwise just get sent back to the wrong side of if you go off the left side or right side, whatever. So just like that, I skip Death Valley tile, and I'm in front of Palace 1. Smiley face, pillar tops, and no eyeball outside, just crying fire. So again, I'm thinking, okay, where's the item in this place? 56 minutes have passed and I don't have the glove yet. This is pretty much never a feel-good moment. To have gone through this much of the sea to just, yeah, not have a single, like, glove show up. But, good news, I do see this screen, and I've played enough seats to know that this screen, if you see this screen in a palace, you have an item room. You have a major item potentially in your hands here. This being the boots, which would have been really nice to get early on. Only 56 minutes into the seat can I walk on water tiles inbounds. So, not gonna lie, I felt a little disappointed to just see that at that point. A little disappointed that came late. And that screen also just recognizes a dead end there as well. So now, the only thing on my mind at this point is to find Horsehead as soon as possible, kill him, and place a gem. Since the item's already accounted for. And I see curtains in this room, so that is actually Horsehead. Who will go down very quickly with my 556 stat line. So I'll kill him and place my gem, and then just move on to another palace. Okay, it's 1:40 in the morning, and I still gotta sit through this video. Still gotta sit through this and watch myself place 2 more gems and do a great palace. Okay, I better sleep well after this. I better get a good night's sleep after finishing this. So again, I just force a game over with up and A. So I'm thinking to myself, at this point, there are not too many item locations left for the glove to even be in. So the glove is pretty much reduced to being in Palace 3, Palace 4, there's the water tile, there's 2 item hotspots in New Kusuto, Magic Container Lady, who was asking for 6 containers last I checked, and then Spell Tower, which would, in the vanilla game, have Magic Key. You need the spell to make this tower appear, so I go to Tanasaria to actually pick that up, in case the glove's in there, because there's decent odds that it is at this point. Yeah, I'm looking at 7 potential item hotspots. Well, to be honest, more like 6 because one of the 2 Death Mountain items is in fact the cross. I got a hint for that earlier. So I'm looking at a 1 in 6 odds that I need spell to get glove. So I'm tempted to just grab it. even if it's not, there's also a decent chance that a magic container could be buried in Spell Tower, and grabbing that would put me at 6 magic containers, by the way, thus being enough to actually go and claim Magic Container Lady's item in Nukasudo. And then I actually decide to go into Death Mountain, so what I was thinking here is, okay, let's try and find Spectacle Rock. Let's try and find the boulder. I'm gonna walk across the water to try and quickly navigate Death Mountain. Try and get a very quick view of the whole, like, topology of this Death Mountain. And mainly just try and find the rock, and hopefully the cross is not under that, because if the cross is not under this, then that means Hammer Cave would have the cross, but to my dismay, the rock had the cross, so we don't know what's in Hammer Cave. So any of these caves, technically speaking, could have a major item in it, but with a Shuffle Death Mountain, I gotta just painstakingly look. So I have second thoughts about actually going and looking for the item. Yeah, I do have second thoughts because it doesn't look like it's going to be that easy to search this Death Mountain out for its item. I mean, I'm having a bit of trouble just sort of finding my way around, just thinking, okay, what's the most sensible place to check for Hammer Cave? It's not looking super obvious as to where to go, based on how these caves are connecting. Yeah, definitely my first move when it comes to trying to find something like Hammer Cave or a connector cave is always just stick to the edges of the map and look for a cave that, logically speaking, is pointing off the map. Yeah, with caves pointing to each other that are connected. Just using logic, that would just indicate that caves that point off the map and can't possibly connect to another cave would just have to lead to something like Hammer Cave or a connector. So let's just say you're at the leftmost border of Death Mountain, and there's a cave pointing left at the leftmost border that would be implying to be pointing off the map. Like you're on the left side of Death Mountain and there's a cave pointing to your left, you go left to enter it. Good chance that's Hammer Cave or a connector. So I'm using that logic, first things first. But apparently it's not working so well for me. Not holding up so well that logic as good as it is. This is assuming, like, connection cave restriction flag is set to on, which in this seed it is. It's also become sort of a standard for that to be, like, turned on. And, yeah, by the way, this is Hammer Cave. Okay, I did another rewind too far back. I want to just pause at Hammer Cave so you could just see the whole thing. Skip too far back, though. In case you want to look at the whole cave just to really tell it apart from the others. I mean, there's no guarantee you get to this cave with a candle, so even without a candle, you can still pretty easily tell this cave apart from any others in Death Mountain, because when it comes to just entering a cave like this, there is no other cave in Death Mountain that has this shape for the first screen. And if you have the candle, it's even easier to tell Hammer Cave apart from everything else. No other cave in Death Mountain has these smiling pillars either. Sure, you wouldn't be able to see these without the candle, but you would still be able to see the general shape of the cave. And no other cave in Death Mountain is shaped like this on the first screen. Well, assuming you're entering it, like, on the left side. No other Death Mountain cave is shaped like that on the left side. So I guess just try and recognize the shape, because most of the time, pretty often you might just be like looking at the shape that just tell the caves apart. So I spent about like 2 to 3 minutes finding that cave. Then I'll have to go back out of the cave once I claim the item in here. Yeah, I remember it's a magic container, so in other words, it's not the glove, it's not the holy grail I'm looking for. Which honestly disappoints me to see a magic container in here. That could have been the glove, could have stopped worrying. But at the very least I use it to just cast dash to get out of the cave faster. So this actually would also give me Magic Container Lady and Nukasudo as an option, right here. I mean, well, what else do I really want to call her anyways at this point? I mean, it's the lady who asks you for a certain amount of magic containers, so the name only makes sense. So I found the cross under the rock, forgot to mark it as such until now, and a magic container in Hammer Cave, because that cave normally has the hammer in it in actual Zelda 2, hence why it's called that. So Death Mound's been searched out, with no glove in there. So it just leaves Palaces 3, 4, the Water Tile, and Nukasudo item hotspots for the glove, so that's 5 locations where the glove can be. And I'm gonna go into Palace 3 and still have my mind on looking for the item in here, honestly. Going in here with my mind set on finding the item and killing the boss. Would be more ideal to just have my mind set on only killing the boss, but I'm thinking about both still, because I have no glove yet. And I'm strongly expecting to need it. And I just found some curtains in this room, so yep. I just found Rabanak. I tried to get a good setup for a quick, easy kill, but I failed it, so I'm trying again. So for Rabanak, I'm trying to do the corner kill. So I think this is roughly a good spot to stand. Depends on what tiles exactly make up the palace floor. Maybe easier or harder to just figure this spot out. And I guess right around here is Rabanak is in the middle of this pillar here on your right. You want to jump up and downstab him. You want to just time this in such a way that you can get Rabanak in the corner like so. And I still don't exactly have it. So if you time this just right, you can get Rabanak on his horse in the corner, and you can just also pop him off his horse, and he'll still be stuck in the corner, making him insanely easy to kill like so with a downstab. Hence, one of the many reasons I try to get downstab as soon as possible. I can go to Palace 3 and have an easy kill if I know how to set that up. Which I do, of course. Yeah, I opt to stay to look for the item in Palace 3. I quickly find a fork in the road, for one. Yeah, if I already had the glove, I wouldn't even be searching, to be honest. My mindset is, I just need that glove or I'm probably not going to be able to do Great Palace. That's literally all I'm thinking about right now. And I'm just going with the assumption that room's a dead end. I mean, I've seen that room a couple times in other seeds, so I'm just trying to go by memory that that's a dead end, so I just double back. Yeah, not to mention I already have most of the items in the game already. Except for one that I'm assuming I strongly need, that being glove. And also this other room. Yeah, this one here. This screen. To the left of this specific screen and this specific fork in the road, it's just more blocks you need the glove to break. I'm pretty sure, I'm like 90% sure that that room to your left is just glove blocks. like 90% certain on this. And it looks like I found another fork in the road. And then I find what I guess might be actually just the other side of the room I was literally just in. So I go up this elevator to see if I can confirm that I entered another loop. I feel like I have definitely been in this room before, so I just instantly go under the impression that I'm taking a loop. And then I just assume that the rest of the palace is glove blocked, Palace 3, and then just scratch it off my to-do list, because I'm focusing on getting the glove, assuming I need it for Great Palace with all its glove blocks. And again with logic, the item room is glove blocked, thus the glove cannot be in the item room. So I decided to go back to start, back through the cave taking you to the caldera in the west that has Palace 4. Again, my mind is thinking, let's find the item here and kill Karok. Let's do both of these. I know I have to kill Karok, but I might also need the item. So of course I go looking, and just using dash liberally, of course, as always. Just to make doing these palaces faster. And safe to say, I spent more time in these than I wanted to. Just looking for additional items that I might not need. I come up to this room. This room's interesting. You could get through this if you had the glove to break some of these blocks. Or you could fly under the blocks. You can fly in that 1 block tall space with Fairy, which I have, but I don't have the glove, so my only option to proceed further in this direction left is to have Fairy. So I'm just going to go and have a tactical death here. Tactical death incoming. So I'll just respawn with a full magic bar, and then thus be able to cast Fairy to go under the blocks. And I find another fork in the road, where I can go either left or right. Again, just going with the logic that you can't find boss rooms going left. I mean, you could. They could eventually lead to a boss room, but if you're going left, then the room that's immediately to your left won't be a boss room, but a room immediately to your right, going right, could be. But when it comes to Randomizer, of course, that logic doesn't always uphold. You could just be faced with the dilemma of going right, as opposed to going left, and then just find out you've wasted a bunch of time anyways, and you would have been far better off going left. I've seen quite a few palaces where I just got punished pretty hard for going right instead of left. Like, most of the palace would be on the right-hand side of a fork in the road that you just immediately enter upon the entrance of the palace, and then just a bit of the palace and the boss on the left. It's happened quite a few times before. Yeah, do remember that can happen. So, for Karok, basically you cast Reflect, you crouch while facing him, and just deflect his attacks back at him. I think the fight basically explains itself. If you don't have Reflect, the fight's impossible. I also recognize that screen as a dead end, so I double back. Again, in pursuit for the item in case it's the glove. Palace 3 also had the equation, Nukasudo's 2 item hotspots, both of the equation, that being Magic Container Lady, who asked for 6 containers earlier this seed, and Spell Tower, that I need spell for, so I have to return to Nukasudo with that. So those are in the equation still, plus a water tile in the east, bottom left corner of the east specifically. I have the boots, so I'd be able to check that out. Yeah, and of course, Palace 4 itself. Those are like the 4 item hotspots still in the equation for the glove, and I did run into another dead end, so I do an up plus A just to go back to start in the palace. I decided to investigate this room a bit further, assuming it might actually just be the room I've been in already. I mean, just because you've actually seen this room from the other side, there's actually no guarantee that this is in fact the room that I entered in the other side, that I had to just ferret under the blocks at the bottom of the screen. There's actually no guarantee that I've actually been in this room before, because you could actually get, like, the same room in the same palace twice, let me remind you. I mean, you could just assume and hope for the best that you've already been in that room. I just decided to try and make the assumption I've already been in there, hoping there wouldn't be a second copy of that specific room in Palace 4. So I find what looks like it's another item room, and it is. So I made the right call to assume I've been to that room already with the glove blocks. And Palace 4 just gives me my 7th magic container. Realistically speaking, there are only 3 places left for the glove to be. Yeah, feels bad. This would have been a quicker seed, and I don't know, maybe I could have just gone to bed by now, because I would have had like a shorter seed to do the tutorial for. Feels bad. I could probably be sleeping by now if I had the glove show up sooner. Feels bad, man. So again, I'm doing the fairy feet trick where I just gently edge my way to border the screen, trick the game into thinking I'm going the wrong way. Just edging my way to the right side of the screen, tricking the game into going thinking I'm going left by just getting to the edge of the right side of the screen. Then once I'm at the edge, pressing left to exit the screen, because apparently that's how Zelda 2 works. So I checked the water tile, and it's the glove. Glove is on the water tile, so I make a mad dash for the Great Palace that I remember was in the bottom half of the East Continent. Yeah, also when it comes to West and East, one thing you'll definitely want to just get good at doing is just dividing the continents into smaller sections. For example, for this seed, you can divide West Hyrule into a lower and an upper half. They're separated by this caldera. You just go through the caldera to get from one half to the other. So yeah, Great Palace looks like this. Black sky, and it's also not We Will Party and Dance With You playing, instead it's the Great Temple theme. So I have no gems on me, so I can go right in. So I go into the palace and start looking around for Thunderbird. So in the flags, I've set Thunderbird to be required. That's standard fare for standard type flag sets. So in a case scenario like this, you want to just look for Thunderbird. Yeah, basically just have your sights set on Thunderbird's room, because when you find that, you will know you're going in the right direction. Not to be mixed up with any sort of seed where Thunderbird's not required in the flag set, because in that case, Thunderbird could just lead you to a dead end. Yeah, let's just say if Thunderbird required was actually checked off. That would not actually guarantee that Thunderbird is not required. The only way to guarantee that is if you removed him outright, which is almost really never heard of. So assuming you're not removing a Thunderbird and making him not required, that actually implies that Thunderbird is not necessarily required, which is not the same as not required. You may still end up, in a case like that, having to fight Thunderbird to get the Dark Link's room. With it, however, being possible that Thunderbird's not blocking Dark Link. but that's typically like common fare for max rando, which we're not doing. We're doing standard type flag sets, where Thunderbird is required, so you're guaranteed to have to fight him. And finding a way to skip him and killing Dark Link would just actually get you disqualified in that tournament setting. So we're just going to assume that yes, you need to kill Thunderbird. And yeah, thus you do need the Thunder spell, which I picked up in the Old Kasuto a while ago. So yeah, some more things to remember. For 6 gem, Thunderbird required. And then I actually start to get really nervous when I see this on my screen here. Also, first things first, I'm going to mention you need to reflect on Thunder for these typical standard fare Zelda 2 randomization. You need... I'm really tired now, aren't I? You need Reflect to kill Karok in Palace 4, who's one of your gems you need to place. And you need Thunder to kill Thunderbird with the flag set he's required. And then I get to this screen and I immediately get nervous because this is basically an upstat block. Bar knowing how to do a very tricky setup with the fairy and the jump spell, and just glitching, hitting blocks above you, bar that, you need the upstab to clear these blocks out. And I went into this palace without the upstab, hoping to save time, so I immediately got nervous upon seeing this. This definitely just impacted my way of thinking as to how I'm going to approach this palace. This put me in a pretty, detrimental, demoralizing mindset, with the possibility now I might need the upstab to beat the seed. This made me feel really bad about the rest of the seed. Seeing an upstab block and not having upstab started making me feel nervous. So I do check my other options, of course. So one thing you'll want to remember if you did not bring the upstab, try and remember exactly where all your options were in a Great Palace. Especially if it's one hell of a hike from Darunia. Well, from Great Palace to Darunia and back. Considering it's like a two-way trip you gotta make. And then, yep, that is a second upstab block I just saw. Yep, I saw another upstab block, so I actually... Oh man. I went back in. So I decided to just check to my immediate right here, hoping that would lead to Thunderbird. And then I find a room that I know for a fact is a dead end, so I'm looking at 2 upstab blocks and a dead end, so I just think that I need the upstab, but wait until you see how the seed ends. I'm just going to want to really stress it before I just pass out from being too tired that always double check all your options in the Great Palace before coming to the worst possible conclusion that you need the upstab. So I have to make a bit of a journey across Maze Island, not much of one though at least. And then also make the journey back from Darunia to Great Palace. I mean, the journey goes both ways to get the upstab. Yeah, again, it would be nice if I could just be sleeping by now. Sort of think I really should have just done this tomorrow, but I might not have remembered many of the details of the seed as well if I just did this tomorrow instead of tonight. So again, I'm using the fairy spell and not jump, and again, just like for me though, what you want to do is be standing, and you actually have to be just crouching to enter that chimney like Mario enters a pipe in SMB. So you want to just be crouching on the ground, and then you cast fairy, and then you fly into that chimney, and it will let you down there. If you're in midair, or you just forget to crouch while turning into a fairy on the ground, the chimney doesn't let you enter. You gotta be just getting the game to think that you're holding down. And to do that, just crouch as you turn into a fairy, and the game will just, have it, thought that you're holding down. and then we'll let you in the chimney and get upstab. Yeah, when it comes to like the sword techniques, upstab is typically not that useful. Sure, it may also just give you a little advantage in some of the waffle rooms in Great Palace anyways. But upstab, you can often just skip it. But sometimes you can just be penalized pretty hard for actually skipping it. So I go back to check that second upstab block. And yes, by the way, these are the waffle rooms I've been mentioning earlier, and yes, blood required for all of these. Hence why I kept on stressing the importance of getting the glove, because there are a lot of rooms like this where you have to just break through blocks to even get through them. And not to mention, this is just more blocks you gotta break with the glove. So, of course, I just explore more of the palace. Hoping Thunderbird and Darklink are in this direction. With the guarantee I will find Thunderbird first with the flags that I've picked. So I just find more forks in the road. And again, just like the other palaces, you do have to pay attention in case you find any loops, just so I don't get too thrown off by them. And also rooms that look alike. So sometimes it can be quite the mental gymnastics trying to just actually know where you're going. And I already start to get under the impression I've just taken a loop of some sort. Have a pretty close shave there, but I'm already under the impression I've just entered a loop. So I can eliminate one other possibility as to where I can actually go. I also just turned back at that room because I'm just guessing I've already seen the other side of it elsewhere in the Great Palace. Yep. Falca strikes again. Yeah, I'm pretty well versed at combat, and it's like 2 in the morning, so I'm not even trying to explain just how you adequately deal with the Falcas. I mean, a good trick I like to use to deal with some of the Falcas is let them jump over me. They do like to jump, and they can often just jump right over you, rather than have to just try and jump across them or whatnot. You can just let them hop over you, and then that's a really good way to get them behind you. Just let them hop over you. Find another upstab block, so I think 3 of them in this palace so far. Yeah, fun times indeed. 3 upstab blocks. And then I begin to get the impression I've entered another loop. Also within this wing of the Great Palace. I figure that other fork in the road with the left and right options is further up that elevator. So I also end up in this room right here. So this is a room you fall into. I recognize it from this screen alone. This is a room you fall into. So you can't go up the drop, so as far as I'm concerned, this is a dead end. Assuming there's a drop to actually let you fall in there. Or it's just a simple dead end anyways. So I found a dead end for one. Okay, no, this is actually another room I actually recognize. not the fork in the road letting you go left or right, but it's still a part of the palace I've seen already, including this too. So now I'm just actually repeating rooms. So I'm still just uncertain as to exactly where I'm going, to be honest, in this palace. Though I eventually do find another room I actually haven't seen yet. And I get lucky with that block having a red jar in it, because that could have otherwise been a red falcon, which would have been potentially lethal. Yeah, the falcons are pretty dangerous enemies, and then I find another dead end back behind these glove blocks. I've reached another dead end. So I guess maybe sooner rather than later, I begin to get the hint that I'm just finding all kinds of cycles and dead ends in this wing of the Great Palace. I think, yeah, right about there, I start to feel like I'm just getting led in circles and down dead ends in that wing of the palace. And then it just occurs to me maybe I never needed upstab after all. Because down here, you can either go left or you can go right. My first, foray into this palace was to go down the very first room. Left in that very first room leads to an upstab block. That leads to all of this bullshit that's just dead ends and cycles. Going right in the very first room where it's the three-way fork in the road eventually leads off to a dead end pretty quickly. Down in this room and then right leads to an upstab block that I actually could have gone back for and maybe found Thunderbird there. But I decided to go left first. Just really wondering if I needed the upstab. So I go left. I didn't go left yet. I know I haven't been left yet here. So I'm finding new rooms in Great Palace. And I find an emoji room that I need the glove to break through more of these blocks, of course. So this Falk is in a pretty tricky spot. And one hit from him actually nearly kills me, so I just panic and cast Thunder, hoping it kills him, which it does. Just to try and get rid of him, or at least knock him back. And then I find Thunderbird's room, which has these smiling pillars. So again, Thunderbird's room is unique. No other palace GP room looks like this. And yes, you can go up an elevator with this kind of Reconstructive Palace logic to find a Thunderbird room. You can also go down an elevator, or just straight to the right to find a Thunderbird room. But, again, you can't go left to find a Thunderbird room. And in case you're wondering, I died on purpose, because I left myself with not enough magic to cast Thunder. Because you need to cast Thunder to actually get Thunderbird's face revealed so you can actually do any damage to it. You basically need a Thunder spell and whatever magic you cast it to even fight this boss. And this is blocking Dark Link, which is basically the finish line, so hence why I needed Thunder. So if I keep on pursuing this direction after Thunderbird, I'll eventually find the finish line, which is Dark Link. And as to what I do for the Thunderbird fight, of course it's just dodging fireballs, but I typically try to get Thunderbird just moving downwards as it approaches the middle of the screen so I can jump from the blocks I'm standing on to hit him in the face. And then ideally I try to get Thunderbird near the top of the screen when I'm dodging his fireballs, and he's at the edge of the screen. So Thunderbird's coming back down to the middle of the screen. He's descending while he's moving to the middle, which again I can just strike him in the face. All of this while dodging his fireballs, which really picks up after he goes down to like half health. Certainly takes time to get used to actually fighting this guy. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a very intimidating boss at first glance with all these fireballs, especially in the second half. So it really takes practice to get good at this. But I do recommend just using this consistent, like, fairly consistent setup. Just consistently try and get Thunderbird descending as it approaches the middle of the screen, just like strike it in the face there. And then just weave your way around the fireballs as you're being led to the left and right sides of the screen respectively. Just move back and forth, rinse and repeat until Thunderbird's dead. And then I'm seeing more Palace after Thunderbird. And an elevator down that leads to, again, no other room in Great Palace looks like this. And this is Dark Link in here. Okay, yeah, there's nothing in here. I never did figure out what was in Maze Island, or Spell Tower, or Nukasudo, Magic Container Lady. Okay, I don't think I need to actually explain the left wall trick in too much detail, especially if anyone watching this is actually familiar with the actual Zelda 2. Yeah, in the American version of Zelda 2, the final boss just falls for this trick that makes him very easy to kill, despite him being literally the final boss, like after Thunderbird. So yeah, we pretty much just always do this. It's a fast, easy kill against Dark Link. So it's called the left wall trick for this very reason. You just get to the left side of the screen, you crouch and face Dark Link. This makes it easy to hit Dark Link and hard for Dark Link to hit you. Of course, Dark Link's shield still may block some of your attacks, but just keep on going at it with this setup, just keep on stabbing at it, and you will get it. And yep, that is the end of this seed. This was a 6-gem, bracket-style flag set for standard tournament. So this is basically just an overview of how it was done. And if anything was missing, then if there's anything maybe you wanted me to elaborate on further, please tell me in the comments. And I guess also if I forget to upload any additional resources to go along with this tutorial, again, remind me of that too. I can maybe just put some print screens of all the caves you want to look out for example, in each continent. Also maybe a graph of Palace 6, and just an explanation of graph theory if you want to use that to just help you, like, map your way through palaces. Yeah, so that is pretty much the end of a Zelda 2 randomizer seed. Well, thanks for watching everyone, and I guess also a thank you to Dig Shake for even making the randomizer in the first place. So, there were also like 2 other hints I never found. Never got to know exactly what the Maze Island Palace item was. Then again, I think the only items that were even left in the seed were like 2 heart containers and a magic container. None of which I really needed to clear the seed out. I was just trying to find that glove, and I got unlucky to see it super late. So I had to just search just about everywhere, trying to get one item. And yes, if you were to go and watch back the correct Great Palace path, it does take you through an emoji room with blocks you have to break that you need the glove for, so yep. Of course, this Great Palace required the glove. Only for 1 room, but it still required it nonetheless. Hence why I was so hell-bent on getting that, like, even 30 minutes in. Because it's just way too likely you'll need it for Great Palace, with all of those glove block rooms. Also, if you were paying attention, like, when I was going down all those dead ends, you saw those too. And any of those dead ends could have actually just had Thunderbird and Dark Link behind them as well. The whole point is that I just didn't know exactly what my Great Palace layout was. And again, I'm just going to stress it one more time. Just always exhaust all of your options if you're going into Great Palace without upstab or downstab or whatnot. Try and just exhaust all your available options first, because especially if it's a long trip to get something you're missing, keep in mind that it's a trip both ways you gotta make. And not to mention, let's just say if the room you got blocked off in is deep inside your Great Palace, then yeah, of course, that means just have more Great Palace to redo. if you're leaving it to get something else. So yeah, for Great Palace, I'd recommend trying to exhaust all your possible options if need be. Try and keep a positive mindset. Negative mindset probably won't do you like much justice. Might just make you more likely to make a stupid decision like me. Like I just decided to not check one path and turns out it was the correct one. Got upstab and never needed it. I could have just saved quite a bit of time on this seed, but oh well, this is literally just practice. It's just to show you what can happen in the Zelda 2 randomizer setting. I mean, I still feel like I did this justice. I mean, I did want to show off what could possibly happen in the Zelda 2 seed. So I felt like I covered quite a few cases. Yeah, so that's the end of the tutorial. And believe me, I want to go to bed right now.